there and welcome to another episode of Interama. Today, I did cover quite a bit of ground, even though I still want to, at the end of the episode, I still felt like I needed to detail certain areas a bit more. But we're going to get to that into the nitty-gritty of this episode in just a second. Before I say anything else, I do want to make a quick announcement. In about a week and a couple of days, I was kindly invited to join the Frontier Expo 2017 in London. And I think tickets are sold out right now, but those of you who are lucky enough to be able to go, well, I'll be hanging out there with a couple of other YouTubers that you probably know, like Flux, Lady Designer. I think Silverhead and Conflict Nerd Dylan is going to be there. I think more people that you probably know are going to be there as well, but I just can't remember right now. It's going to be a lot of fun, and even if you can't make it, I'll probably be live tweeting things as they happen, and I think I'm going to put together a bit of a vlog of, the whole event. So that's just going to be fun. It's going to be really interesting going back to London. And looking forward to meet some of you in person for the first time, I guess. I don't think I've ever done any public event before, but this is definitely going to be interesting. There's going to be some showcasing of some Planet Coaster stuff and Elite and Dangerous, and I think the new Jurassic Park games. They're going to be showing off some new things. I'm actually really looking forward to that game. For some reason, it just looks amazing. In any case, I just want to, publicly thank Frontier for inviting me to this event. I think it's definitely going to be a lot of fun. And that's it with the selling part of the episode. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of you there. And as you can see here on the actual episode that I'm working on right now. I started, originally I was just thinking of leaving this cable car towers just empty because I don't think, I think they were opened at some point in the real park. But obviously that is not a feature in the game. We don't have a ride that allows us to have cable cars. So I ended up creating my own. And this design that you see here, by the way, is the third try at a design, because I did a few others. You can actually see them in the back there for a split second. They look terrible, so that's why I'm not even bothering to show it to you. But I kind of like this design. It's pretty simple. These are like 1-2 person cabins, and they come in like a couple of colors. In fact, I'm gonna link in the description a drone video of the park. Recently, it's actually a video from like a couple of years ago, not super old, like it's in HD and like shot with a drone, so it's like pretty current, where part of the video shows like just an area where all these cable car boxes are just laying down there after not being used for a while, which is kind of that was sort of the inspiration for the thumbnail that you probably saw before watching this video, the one you clicked on. And that we, of course, are going to be tackling in just a second. There's going to be a whole area, like storage area for these cable car. Well, I don't know what they call them, like cabins. I don't think they're cabins, but I guess these are just the cars, right? And one thing that you already probably noticed is that these metal columns are actually kind of impossible to, for this particular design. They're pretty, they wouldn't work in real life. And the reason being is that the thing that usually, so the cable cars or like ski lifts, that kind of thing, they usually are, the cables are sitting on one end of the tower and the other as well. Which means that, as the cable cars go through the towers, they don't get stuck with anything. However, in this design, by the way, I downloaded this from the workshop, and I realized after I was like pretty much done adding all these cars, I didn't realize before, you can see how everything is like, one of those lines will definitely get stuck as it goes through the columns. I didn't have time to fix that. I don't know if I will actually fix that either, because it's mostly aesthetics what I'm doing right now. Even all of the mechanisms that I'm working on right now, I just want to have an approximate version of it that kind of looks, like it should. But I don't know if my OCD will let me. I probably not change it. But if I can't avoid it, I probably will change it. In fact, I did already made a ton of changes to this area that I wasn't planning on doing. First of all, now that we actually have cable cars, I needed to make room, like basically I wanted to measure it so that they can fit underneath that roof. Originally it was a little bit too low, so that's why I redid the whole thing. And you're gonna see me just in a few moments redesign this whole roof section of this building to fit the proper motors that make this whole thing work. Or at least they appear to work. That's sort of the idea here. In any case, it's I wanted to have a bit of a combination between like sort of the metal part of this, like definitely metal beams or steel beams holding the big heavy part together. And then just the surrounding building is mostly for decorations and just to protect it from the elements, I guess. That was sort of the plan here. But these cable cars, I figured it would make more sense to just have it, lying there on the cables, even though they're not moving. They do add a ton of color and detail to the rest of the park. You'll see in a moment. I'm going to be replacing everything. In fact, this new design that I'm doing here for this terminal, I'm actually going to clone it and put it on the other end of the map that we did kind of a similar building before. However, now that we actually have the motor and everything else, we needed to overhaul that. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. As you can see here, we're going to have a bit of a two-tier roof. In fact, it's just going to be oriented the other way. There you go. You can see it right now. And even though I'm not 100% loving this, I'm actually quite happy in general, but I think it needs a little bit more detail. So hopefully in future episodes, I'm going to tackle that. However, you're going to see at the end that I do add quite a bit of detail in terms of vegetation and decoration, things like that. Now, I also wanted to fake like an entrance to this ride that really doesn't exist. And I put down some of those paths, and on each end you can see the second one here. However, since this section of the park is so close to like the maintenance yard, I figured this is the place where they would keep the cable cars that are under repair, or the ones that are like already too old to be in use. So that's why I'm fencing out an area right next to this building for long-term storage. I guess it's sort of the idea behind it. And obviously following with the same pattern, the same design that I've been using so far, with the wooden bricks, the brown or reddish brown wooden bricks that have a pretty unique style. Now here is something interesting. I was trying to do some basically construction site type cables, and I came up with these columns, but those white things, even though they are similar to what they would look like in real life, for electric wiring in general, those white half spheres are a little bit too big. So I decided to sort of go for a simple design. In this case, we're using 2 metal hooks that I'm actually later going to be replacing with just one hook, because I really didn't want to have double cables pretty much throughout. I wanted to keep things simple, and the cables already are pretty detailed. There's a lot going on, so if I added double those cables, it was just going to be a jungle of cables. It didn't look super nice. So yeah, you can see there how crazy that looks, but in just a moment I'm just going to get rid of half of that. And I still, unfortunately we only have one set of cables, because the other ones are pretty short, which meant that if I used those, I would have to, put posts very often, one after the other, and that didn't look great. So just decided to go for the one cable. Oh, this is just a little thing, by the way. I'm just totally changing subjects here. I ran out of ideas at some point during this recording, and I figured that this train track switches needed, a proper switch. So that's what I'm doing here, using that street sign pole. I think it's what it's called. That I wanted to put a red bump sphere at the top to be able to handle it, but I thought it was too much. I did ended up adding that same switch somewhere else on the other end of the track, but I don't know if that is actually in the video. So yeah, as you can see here, I'm duplicating the same design over and over again, trying to like mix it up so it actually looks like the backyard of Google, to be honest, given the super bright colors that I'm using. I wish that I had a bit more flexibility when it comes to the actual shapes that I was able to use here, because you know, the ones in real life are a little bit more trapezoid shaped. It's like two trapezoids put together, like one in the bottom and one on the top, and they're obviously super rounded. Unfortunately, even though this game gives you a ton of flexibility when it comes to adding detail like that, it was really not possible. So what I'm doing here, by the way, is just laying down the, I don't know what you call that, because I mean, it's not like trains have like the pantograph, I think that's the name, you know, the thing that touches the cables. In this case, it's not really like electrical, it's just mechanical, so I don't know if the name is the same. So, you know, I just laid down a whole bunch of them on the one corner and kept all the other ones just lying down there, and there's like, you know, paths where the maintenance crew will just come in and walk through all of these areas. Obviously, many of these have not been used in a while, so they're just lying there and the grass is kind of growing in between them, which seems to be the case in real life too, or at least from that footage I told you just a second ago I found online. You can see the final look on the electric towers there, on the electric utility poles, I guess I will call them. And I was just trying to fill in some of the gaps with some trees. Also, this is a bit of an attempt at adding a bit more detail to the mechanical or the engine part of this build. I figured this was, you know, such a tall area that eventually I'm going to be adding a large metal staircase to sort of match that industrial look and feel. But, you know, in good Strictoster fashion, I keep changing my focus every once in a while. So I decided to start with this lake, and then I'm going back to this build. Of course I am. We're going to go back to that lake in just a second, by the way. And by no means that will be finished, even though I am going to add quite a bit of detail to it. It's definitely going to take a lot more work. In fact, I kind of left it somewhat undetailed on purpose. It will have some low level bushes and things like that. However, I didn't want to add like trees and things that are larger because they tend to block my vision. So if I decide to build a couple buildings there, it will certainly take, I will have to like remove everything, do my building, and then bring them back, which is kind of a lot of work. Now, going back here, I needed a place to sort of segment where people can walk to. So I came up with this idea of having these wooden posts with a rope connected. And originally this gate, I was thinking of having a gate that just swings, from one of the sides. However, I don't know, it didn't look great, and also I didn't want to have it open because, if you just have the fence closed, it doesn't look like a thing that could, open up. So instead of that, I just decided to have, sliding gate, as you saw just a second ago. Should probably be faster with my commentary here, but I don't know. I added some rails on the ground. You can rewind the video if you want to take a look at that. But I don't know. I thought it looked kind of nice, and I might actually revisit some of the gates I did before without the same pattern, which I think looks great. So over here, what I'm doing is sort of what I mentioned before. I'm sort of retrofitting this whole area so that this larger building now fits properly. Of course, the metal industrial staircase had to be redesigned a little bit because there was not a whole lot of room, and I also didn't want to destroy everything I already did. Just wanted to keep things simple. And that's pretty much it here. This whole area, I'm actually pretty happy. I think it's quite designed, quite detailed. Again, imagine this being a ride that's not necessarily working. It's there, it's somewhat well maintenance, but not quite perfect, if you know what I mean. Also, all the cable car towers that we have on this side of the map were the black ones that I got from the workshop. And I decided to sort of, standardize the color, because the original ones in the park are actually white. So I decided to repaint them all. Duplicate them was actually easier than repainting them. And, rearranging these cars separated, equidistant to some degree, I guess, to the best of my ability. You can totally see, you can probably see right now how like they just add a ton of color and detail. The towers themselves were okay, but now that we have these hanging, colorful, super bright, cable cars, it really adds up a lot of detail to the sort of the sky part of the park. And just continuing my detailing efforts here, I decided to do a bit of a small little park right in front of the cable car station, mainly because there's not a whole lot that you can have given how you need the clearance for the cable cars to freely circulate across the cable. So around there, I'm going to be putting down just a ice cream shop for now, but I think I'm going to go for another one in future episodes. That island in the middle of the lake, by the way, it's going to have a gazebo and maybe even a ride like a rocktopus. There is indeed an actual real-life rocktopus in this area of the park. So since I already kind of changed the design a bit, it doesn't quite look as the original one. I kind of took some liberties in recent episodes about how accurate I want this to look like to the original park. At this point, since getting the measurements is really hard. I think I talked about this before, but getting the perfect measurements and all that, it takes a long time and it's really not perfect. So I decided to just sort of eyeball many of these things, have approximate ideas, be inspired by the layout of coasters and things like that. And just, for example, this big lake, it doesn't quite look like this, but I made it in a way that I think would fit better to some of the future plans that I have in mind. Obviously, trying to add a few trees here and there to sort of complete the design. I'm using these clusters of bushes and flowers and basically dead bushes. There's one, those ones over there. They're just dead bushes. There's not a whole lot about them. But they do give it, quite a bit of texture to the shoreline of these little streams and rivers. I mean, I'm pretty much following the same design pattern that I defined several episodes ago. Probably back in episode 2 or 3 when we did that the train bridge over that little ugly, nasty pond that had still waters. I think we've been on this series for quite some time. I think I mentioned this before, but it really does take quite a bit of time to get things done in this game, given how detailed everything is. And also, I feel like the more I spend, browsing all of these design elements here, the more I discover new pieces that I could use. I'm pretty fluent, I guess, when it comes to City Skylines assets, but since I don't play Planet Coaster that often, I end up, settling with elements that are okay, but if I just looked hard enough, I would be able to find, the perfect asset that would make my design look a million times better. Now, this particular building that I'm working on right now, it's a Cosmic Cow. It will have ice cream and milkshakes for the most part. And I'm going to try to clone or at least copy a building that exists in the real park to some degree, because obviously it can't be perfect. In fact, I'm going to throw in a picture on the screen right now so you can see what it looks like. And obviously we're following the same, pretty dull red and and green colors. Remember, this park was owned was owned by the government. So the care for aesthetics and even maintenance for that matter wasn't the best. but it worked. So, it wasn't like thrilling, like, oh, I'm amazing, I definitely need to spend my dollars or my pesos getting ice cream. It was just a box that had an ice cream logo on it. So, that's as good as it gets. And I'm trying to add a bit more detail to this particular building in just a few moments. I'm definitely going to be fencing out that whole area to make it look a little bit more secluded, and obviously connecting it with a path. I don't just want this building to be sitting there. But one thing I realized, though, as I was building, well, just pretty much every episode of Planet Coaster, is how how I was just mentioning the fact that knowing all the different pieces and elements really takes, you really need to know what what you're looking for, because navigating the menus is actually so slow that it makes me not even want to bother to look for the right element. I don't know why exactly that is. It seems like the search engine is not like cache. It's like live updating all the time, even though the elements are pretty much all the same all the time. But I don't know exactly the technical aspect of it. All I know is that every time I want to find something new, I just need to wait for the UI to update. It's like not quick and responsive. And I think if that were to be fixed or addressed, it would make this game a million times more fun. Like, just the UX perspective, just a minor improvement like that, it will be like night and day. But maybe I need to voice my opinion to the people of Frontier. I don't think they want to hear my opinion, but it will be interesting if they can, like, just add a bit of an improvement on that regard. Just like a tiny little thing would go a long ways. And I don't know if you saw there, but I'm using the same rope acid. I'm going to be using that pretty much everywhere now to sort of like fence areas where people are not supposed to go. Over here, just continuing all the fences in the similar fashion. And for a change here, I decided to go for this, the green hedges that I've been using in other places. But since I added that little park at the beginning of the episode right next to it, I think I'm going to be adding a few more of those to sort of make this whole area look a little bit more landscape than other areas of the park. Now, me adding lights here, this took quite a bit of time because, lights are kind of hard in this game. These spotlights are great, or at least some of them are, but you end up having this black box just sitting on the grass, which is not super realistic. You kind of have to integrate it somehow. And I obviously wanted to bring the Interama theme colors to it so that they're not just like white and boring. So I'm going again with the pink and gold colors, as you can see there. And that's I think that does it for this episode. Please enjoy some cinematics. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, I'm going to be at the Frontier Expo on October 7th. That will be at the Here East Olympic Park in London. Hopefully, I'll get to meet many of you. That should be a ton of fun. And if you can't make it because you live in a totally different continent or you just didn't get tickets in time, I'll be live tweeting things as they happen. So make sure to follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/strictoaster. And also be putting out a video after the fact, but that's going to be later down the road. And if you enjoyed this episode, however, I want to ask you to maybe give it a like. That's very much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel and haven't already, maybe you want to consider subscribing. That way you're notified immediately after one of my videos comes out. But that's all that I have to say for now. I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.